God dang it. So here lately, man, I've been kind of in the wilderness season, man. Long story short, I've been going through some highs and some lows, some ups and downs, trying to find contentment. The scripture says, be in godliness with contentment. I've been trying to find that grace to be here in this season of life, man. It's like some days and some weeks are good, some weeks and some days it's like, I'm ready to get out of here. I'm ready to go, Lord. Yesterday was one of them days. Man, I was so frustrated. I was just like, why? What is it, God? What is it that I'm doing? Why am I being here? You know what I'm saying? I was having a conversation with my mom, and I was like, I'm thankful for the wilderness, because I was calling the season like a wilderness season. I was calling it like a dry season. I was just like, God, I don't know exactly why you want me to be here. Like, God, did I do something wrong? God, it wasn't me, making the decision, you know what I'm saying, in college, and I, you know what I'm saying, you basically punished me. Are you punishing me for being here? Like, why am I here? You know what I'm saying? And as time has been going, I've been having these like kind of like these growing pains, these tensions. Like I said, some days it's good, some days it's like a kick, some days it's like, you know what I'm saying, it's like I'm crunking, you know what I'm saying. It's like some days it's just like you know what I'm saying, but other days, like I said, it's good. I feel like God is speaking to me. Like I feel like God is with me. But days like yesterday, man, it's like, God, why have you forsaken me? You know what I'm saying? Like how Jesus was on the cross, he like, God, why'd you forsake me? But long story short, man, today was a good day. Today was a day that I feel like, God really spoke to me, and God gave me a download on what it is, like what's the next lesson in the season. One of the first lessons I was learning in the season, being in the wilderness, was spiritual identity, learning my identity, separating myself from culture and what culture's identity has put on me, and understanding what God has called me to be as a man of God, as a kingdom ambassador. Transformation Church is one of the churches I look at online. The church that I attend and I serve at. Pastor Mike was having a series on kingdom. He called it the Kingdom series. It was called Kingdom, actually, Kingdom. And so the scripture, like anchor scripture of the series, was out of the Lord's Prayer when Jesus was teaching the disciples how to pray. And he highlighted the verse in the scripture that said, let thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And basically, Mike Todd was saying that we are basically the vessels that God uses for his will to be done on earth. So that kingdom that prayer talks about, that kingdom being done on earth as it is in heaven, it comes through us. Like, we are the kingdom ambassadors, you know what I'm saying? Like, another scripture says that God is the King of kings and Lord of lords. Like, we are the sub-kings, we are the sub-lords. God is the master, he's the king, he's the Lord, but we reign underneath him, you know what I'm saying? As the kingdom ambassadors, as the standards, you know what I'm saying, the standard bearers. So long story short, like I said, I was in yesterday I was just in another day. It was like, God, why have you forsaken me? And today I was at work, driving on my way to work and going and doing, all the tasks and errands I had to run for the job. But I was, as I was in worship and prayers, like God began to show me something that I said to myself a couple of weeks ago. God brought it back to my attention. I guess I was kind of right in what I said, but I really didn't pair it with the scripture, that it's scriptural. So I was saying, it's literally like the job where I work at, it's like it's a wilderness. It literally feels like a wilderness. Like, I don't know if you guys ever watched WandaVision. It's a scene in WandaVision where the town that Wanda is like hiding in, she put this big old spell over this town. And on the outside of the town, everything looks normal. It looks, modern day, looks, modern civilization. But when you go into this hex that Wanda did, like if you go into the threshold of the town, it's like a dimension where you go in, and it's like all the way like back in the day. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of how I feel when I'm driving to the town that I work in. And I remember saying to myself, I'm like, bro, if this town didn't have like a paved highway, this would look like a wilderness. It's like, I was like, this is just a roaded wilderness. You know what I'm saying? It's a road with a wilderness with roads. You know what I'm saying? And today, God brought that back to my attention. Because there's some things, like I said, it was just some hard things yesterday that I was dealing with. And today, God, just showing his favor to me again. Like, he literally showed me, like, Rob, you know what I'm saying? You are the kingdom ambassador. Yes, you are the king. Yes, you are the Lord that I chose to use on this earth for my will to be done on earth. And because of that, you have a special favor, Rob. It was some things that I was learning in the wilderness season. I'll kind of back up. When I was talking to my mom, I was like, even though this is a wilderness, I'm growing stronger being here. Like, in my spiritual identity, like I said, that's one of the first things I feel like God spoke to me being in the wilderness in this consecrated time, was my spiritual identity and separating myself from culture, separating myself, because it's hard. It's literally hard. It's almost, I think it is impossible to try to do life like what God asks us to do, to be in righteousness and holiness, and try to still do the things of the world. Those two things, there's no balance there. And I remember so many times in my college matriculation, I was trying to find a balance. I was trying to, do like honor God, but also be effective and relevant in culture, and it just didn't work. You know what I'm saying? And so being in the wilderness is like I kind of shed away those things. Like the scripture, I think it's in Matthew, it says, lay aside every weight that tries to slow you down, and every sin that tries to trip you up. Literally, I feel like that's been my wilderness experience. It's like God is really like saying, like, Rob, it's some identities that you attach yourself to that are not from me. And it's some sins that also that are in your way that are not of me. You know what I'm saying? And you have to lay aside those weights that you've tried to put on yourself, that culture tried to put on yourself, that your parents, that your grandparents, whoever has tried to put on you. You have to lay those things down because they're not from me anyway. That's why they don't work. That's why when you try to do things like the world does, it doesn't fit, or you look weird, or you don't feel comfortable, because that's not who I called you to be. Jeremiah 1:4. It says, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you. I called you and I set you apart as a prophet into the nations. To me, that scripture tells me, like, God has a kingdom identity that he give each and every one of us. When he created us, he created us before he created what we see today, our body. You know what I'm saying? Like each and every one has a purpose, and that purpose is your identity. That purpose is what God breathed breath into you before you was formed in your mother's womb. So he knew you, but he didn't know you like your parents know you. Your parents know, like, I'm Rob. My dad and my mom called me Rob. But God called me something before my parents named me something. You know what I'm saying? And that name I'm not privy to exactly, but maybe that name is what my purpose is. My purpose is, that's my identity. You know what I'm saying? And that purpose is put inside of this body. You know what I'm saying? And then we let culture and society and all this stuff form my soul and flesh without consulting the spirit that God, the purpose that God has placed inside of us, if that makes sense. I'm getting everywhere. I'm going everywhere. I'm trying to stay on track to what I learned today, though. So because we are a kingdom citizen, because we are God's kings and God's lords, it's a special favor and it's a special grace that God has on our lives. But that special grace and that special favor is not for ourselves. It's actually for God's will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. And see, when we're in the wilderness, when we're in our wilderness seasons or our desert seasons, it's not to punish us. I know it feels like punishment. I know it feels like, what in the world am I doing out here? God, why have you forsaken me? But I promise you, God has not forsaken you, because anything that God does in your life, he's not only doing it for you, but he's doing it for his will to be done for others. And sometimes you have to lay aside those weights in order to get to the promised land. You know, I think of like the Israelites being in Egypt. It took God no time for him to get the Israelites out of Egypt, but it took 40 years for God to get Egypt out of the Israelites. A lot of that stuff would have probably been sped up if they didn't resist. If they were holding on to this Egyptian nature and then this nature that God says that we are. And it's like, how can this worldly nature, this culture nature is tangible. It's out there. Everybody's doing it. But this God nature, it's a whisper when culture is yelling. Culture it's out in your face. It's flashing lights. But God, he comes in a whisper. It's a still small voice. And it's like, dang, bro. How can I, you know what I'm saying? How can I balance between these two? But it's trust at the end of the day. I'm not going to get into that. But I'm trying to speed up. Like I said, For God will to be done on earth, it's going to be through his earthly vessels. It's going to be through his children. You know what I'm saying? You've been in the wilderness. You've been in your desert situation. It's not a punishment. It's for God to maybe separate you from whatever you try to attach yourself to growing up, or your identity that you might think you are as a man or a woman of God. But God has to show you, like, hey, although you might have came into this world or grown up in this world, in this season thinking that, I'm going to be this lawyer, I'm going to be this doctor, I'm going to be this musician, whatever you might think it is, I promise you God might have something different. Yes, he gives the desires of your heart, but you have to seek him for those desires. I'm not going to get in the weeds because I don't want to get in the weeds. I'm trying to stick to the message of what God telling me today. You know what I'm saying? By you being a kingdom ambassador, you have a beacon, you have a call on your life, you have literally a GPS. God has a GPS location. Everywhere you go, you take the kingdom there. And wherever you are, you bring a special favor to that place. Talking about roads in the wilderness. Isaiah 43 and 19. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall come forth. Anyway, long story short, it says, I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Again, God says, I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. That scripture came to me today because like I said, God brought it back to my attention about when I was like, this is like, the place I work is like a wilderness with roads. He's like, yeah, you're right. It's a wilderness with roads. And you bring those roads, Rob. It's a desert with a river. You bring that river, Rob. But yes, it is a natural road. You know what I'm saying? It's a natural highway that I travel. But God will literally bring a supernatural highway into your wilderness. I want to make sure I'm saying this right. Today, like I said, I was just shown, I feel like I was shown God's favor. Like God, showed me, like, even though, you know what I'm saying, it's a lot of negative, I feel like cons that were being, in the season I'm at now. But, you know what I'm saying, God showed me just grace, mercy, and favor today. It's like even, you know what I'm saying, Rob, I know it's like God's like, Rob, I know it's hard for you. I know, you need these certain things in order to like feel, you know what I'm saying, sane. You know what I'm saying? Like literally, it's like I have to have certain things in order to feel my sanity, feel like I'm not, slipping away. You know what I'm saying? And being in the wilderness, it's like you can, being in the wilderness, it's isolation. It's nothing out there. There's some stuff out there. There's some stuff out there. But it's not who you are, you know what I'm saying? And it's just hard to see it. It's like, God, how can you say I have destiny, I have greatness, I have all this amazing things that I'm not yet privy to, and you put me in this situation to be in a wilderness and a desert? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't seem like what I'm in right now is going to help me to get there. You know what I'm saying? I still haven't really got to my overall, like, the anchoring point of what God downloaded in me today. But long story is short, is to show, like, legit, Rob, your favor, your presence in the wilderness brings God kingdom to the wilderness. It brings God to make a way for the wilderness, or in the wilderness, sorry. And yes, he's making a way for you, but it's not for you, because you're not going to stay in the wilderness. You're not going to stay in the desert this season, because God has greater for you. Yes, he does. He has greater for you. But sometimes he got to trust you with the wilderness in order to trust you with the palace. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes he got to give you the wilderness for you to steward over the wilderness, be excellent in the wilderness, so when it comes to the palace season, you're the same person. It doesn't change. But see, the wilderness is going to be better for and that was another thing. I'm not here for the wilderness' sake, but because of me being here, the wilderness will benefit because of my presence in the wilderness. The desert will have rivers now because God's kingdom, God's standard has went through there. You are the way in the wilderness. Your kingdom standard being in the wilderness, you being the kingdom ambassador there, you are the way in the wilderness. For you form a path in the wilderness for, not for you, but for others to enjoy, for others to be able to not have to go over the rocky mountains and the hills and valleys that you had to go through. For you will form the way for others to follow. Moses is a great example. I'm not going to go into that though, because that wasn't my assignment for today. You are the river in the desert. You are the river. You are the living water going through the desert. And others are going to be able to have that water to drink from because of your presence there. Let thy will be done, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. You are the will for the kingdom to become, the kingdom to come. You are the way in the wilderness. You are the river in the desert. I just want to make sure I drive it home. God's favors on your life. He has a beacon on your life, and because God corrects you, for your sin, for the weights because God literally shedded, God literally shedded some identities that I had on myself, and He took it away from me. He said, that wasn't you, Rob. You know what I'm saying? It just popped in my head, this is something that you've been, dealing with. This is something that you've been holding on to. And I'm asking you to let it go. I'm asking you to let it go of the very thing that you feel like helped made you the man that you are today. But no, it didn't. No, it didn't. God was always there. As long as I'm being goofy. So I encourage you, whoever you are out there, if you're going through a wilderness, even though I don't post this, but I'm gonna try. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna try to post this. Whoever you are, if you are going through a wilderness season, one of the very things that God might do to you, He might prune you. That means He might cut off some things, some old natures, or some things that you might have felt like they were good. Like you thought you and God was good, and He might bring it to your attention. Like, this very thing is one of the things that I need you to let go of, and it hurts. I'll be honest, it hurts. When God asked me to let go of some things of the community, of culture, of Egypt, that I was holding on to, it was like, dang, God, this is the only thing I had as far as community, so why you let me act? But it's like, let thy will, or your will be done, not mine. I trust you, more than anything else, I gotta trust you, but it hurts. That pruning hurts. He's literally cutting away some things, some weights that you've been holding on to, that you thought were your identity. And it hurts when you find out, dang, I don't have much of an identity, but yes, you do. For those things that you were holding on to wasn't your identity, but it's making room for the greater that God has inside of you.